Hi, this is Bennett Kinkade, and for my presentation, I will be doing The Office. So The Office was a show that ran for 9 seasons. I'm sure that you're probably familiar with the show. It was popular over Netflix, and it received millions and millions of views over the years that it has been on Netflix. It originally started on cable on NBC, and for many years, from my personal opinion and from other opinions, obviously on social media, um, it's been believed that The Office should be rebooted for a number of reasons. So, for my personal influence as to why I believe it should be brought back is because of how popular it was and how much that I enjoyed the show personally. I love the show. It's still, to this day, it's my favorite show. I've watched it over probably 10 to 12 times from start to finish. Whenever I was bored or I didn't have time to do anything, or really at any time, I would always rely on watching The Office. And not only that, but I always found it so interesting how it could stay on for so long and they could carry a story for the amount of time that they could, because it was successful for 9 seasons, and critics always loved the show, and financially they were completely fine and they made plenty of money for themselves. In the reboot that I would be planning for the show, it would be the same as it was before. It would be a multi-camera sitcom, and it would be the same as last time. It would be episodic, and it can really be watched at any time, which falls into the next question of what it could be. And in some ways, I believe it's an episodic show. In some ways, it's serialized, because you can really pick up The Office and watch it at any time and watch any episode that you really want. But there are little backstories that will help when it comes to watching the show. Like, they have very specific setups. Like, there's always a Christmas episode, there's always a Halloween episode, like the story of Jim and Pam as they're going from Jim being the one who's flirting with Pam while she's at reception to being married and having a child, and then Michael trying to find his love. There's little stories, but in general, I feel like it's an episodic show where you can really watch it at any point, and it's not like you're going to be missing like some big, huge part of the plot. It's just there's little things that make it a little bit better for you when you're watching. And The Office is a mockumentary. It kind of mocks the idea of like a workplace. It's a workplace comedy. It models a documentary going over several years at the office of Dunder Mifflin. And for a plot idea, I had an idea of changing the office space in Scranton, which would still follow the style of a mockumentary, just like Parks and Recreation, Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And I think it would be a good idea to bring back the original cast and bring back people like Michael, obviously, because he was one of the main characters on the shows for several seasons. And for the reboot, the principal lead is obviously going to be Michael, because he is unique, and when he was on the show was completely focused on him at all times. He always had the spotlight, and in every single episode, something was always going on with Michael. The partners are Dwight and Jim, and that's also obvious because they are two completely different people. They argue a lot, they're very different, and usually they're going at each other's heads nonstop. For the ensemble, I would say it's probably Jim, Dwight, and Michael, because they have a lot of main focus on themselves, and they're always being involved in one point or another, and they're always involved in what's happening with the show in general. And when I would do the reboot, I would say that I wouldn't change the characters very much at all. I think that all of them should come back, and the difference of it was that the Dunder Mifflin would be at a different location in Scranton. They would have different selling points, as in they would be like selling steel instead of paper. Like, they'd be bought out by a company, which would change the whole company as a whole. They wouldn't be able to sell paper. They wouldn't be paper salesmen. They'd be doing other jobs. And I'd also like to bring back the older characters from previous seasons that were a little important, but not as important. People like David Wallace and Jan. And I feel like if you bring everybody back to start the show off, it gives it a good start for people to get into it and be like, okay, I remember all of these people. And So, including that, the patriarch is definitely Michael, because Michael's always been the main focus. Matriarch is Jim, because he's the person kind of in the background, but he's also like emotionally, everybody connects to Jim. Everybody has always loved Jim and the whole Jim and Pam thing and his story of finding love. The craftsman is obviously Dwight, because he's always scheming something at the office, whether it's trying to become manager, trying to mess up Jim, something with Angela, really anything. He's always scheming some type of plan. And the clown is also Dwight, in my opinion, which is because he is unappreciated a lot and he's very overwhelmed. And in his 9 seasons of The Office, he had one goal in mind, and that was to become manager of the branch, and it never really ended up happening because Michael wouldn't let it happen or certain circumstances, and he's always the person who is trying to get into a place that he really can't go into. And the original creators of the show, if I could, I would definitely bring them back because they would have the best idea of what the show should be. And the creators were Greg Daniels, but it was based on the UK version of the show by Ricky Gervais. And for the pilot, the way that I would format the pilot, at least for that, would be the beginning is that Dunder Mifflin is bought out by a steel company to keep employees and sell steel with paper, but paper would be the minority, so it would change the entire environment of the office and how things work. And in the middle, I'd probably include something of like a Jim and Dwight thing, fighting throughout the day to keep Dunder Mifflin from becoming strictly a steel and paper company and making it only a paper company, and maybe something else in between about them fighting at their new office. And then at the end, it'd be like a big surprise that Michael's coming back to be manager of the new steel business, and he moves back from Colorado with Holly, and it becomes basically like a complete restart of the original office that happened beforehand. And the antagonist of the show would obviously be Dwight, because Dwight is always causing problems in the show. He's always scheming, like I said once before. He's always doing all these things. He's pretty much the one guy that you always want to look out for each episode to see what he's going to do. And for a few ideas that I came up with for episodes, I came up with the idea of a company football game, similar to the company basketball game that they had, and if I'm correct, I think it was season 1. A company escape room where the entire office goes to an escape room. I feel like that would be a really fun episode. And then I would want to do a remake of the Snowball episode where Jim and Dwight got into a snowball fight and Jim was terrified the entire episode because he kept getting hit from Dwight, but I would reverse it the other way around to see how that would go on Dwight, and that could start it throughout the show as another thing. And then I'd have Michael having a child while in the show. And then the last idea, the 5th idea would be that in advance, after Michael having a child, Toby would become acting manager when Michael is gone, because that would create tension between Michael and Toby, and it's always funny to see Toby trying to do something important since he's very quiet. But overall, I believe the show should be rebooted. It was extremely popular. It was loved by a lot of people. Financially, it could make a lot of money for NBC or Netflix and for all of the actors, and to me personally, I can't see a single reason why they shouldn't reboot it. So, yeah, that is why I believe that The Office should be rebooted. Thank you.